Hey, today on Country Pocket, we're here with JD Graham. He is relaxing outside and he has a great new album out. The first track you just heard off it is called A Pound of Rust. JD, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you, man?
I'm doing good. Why did you start this album by confessing all your sins?
Well, I mean, that's kind of this song was I wrote 160 songs when I was incarcerated. This is the last one that I wrote after the I wrote this song a couple weeks before I got out, and this song kind of was just kind of summed up everything I had been through in my incarceration, and everything. And I thought that, if I'm going to make an album, that this has to be the first song, right? Just like the first line of it says, I've got some things to get off my chest, and that was just kind of how I always knew that, like, when I made this album, this song would be on it, and this would be the first song, and that wasn't open for discussion. And
So,
also another big part of it is I wanted the listener to know exactly who they were getting ready to listen to for the rest of the album. I wanted to set this up and just kind of bare my entire soul. And I do this a lot with live shows. There's two live shows. A lot of people that come out, they think they're going to have to wait for this song. And a lot of times this is the first or second song, because I want the audience to know exactly who's in front of them right out of the gate. And it kind of also makes them a little more inquisitive as to the rest of my catalog whenever I just come out with something as honest and as soul bearing as A Pound of Rust.
so tell me about your stint in prison.
What do you want to know? I did 5 years in the state of Arizona.
What was it like in
I
there?
was well. I think perspective is everything. I mean, I did my first year at a pretty violent prison yard called Red Rocks down in Eloy, Arizona, and it was like a high medium custody prison, and there were about 1900 guys there. Three or 400 guys on the yard were doing life, and the high custody yards are they're a little violent. However, I convinced them, the administration there, to start a music program even on the high custody yard, and they spent some money. And I had a guy named Javier Lavender that I played with in the church band. We kind of tag teamed this thing, and we were teaching 6 7 classes a week. I remember the classes were that we were starting to teach music. Let me back up a second. I decided to start teaching music in prison because I looked around at all the programming that I saw, and some of the guys were like required to show up for it, and the people that were teaching it really didn't care. So I felt that the nutrition model that I was living in was more punitive than rehabilitative. I've always known how powerful music is, so I wanted to try to use what I had learned about music, and try to approach helping people heal through music through a sober lens, because I was a drug addict for 25 years, and the last time I stopped getting high was the day I signed my plea. And I've never touched anything since. I've got what's today, the 15th?
Yep.
Day the 15th. Yeah, I've got 6 years, 4 months, and 15 days of uninterrupted sobriety. But yeah, so I started teaching and watching music just open people up that were incarcerated, that had been struggling with, been missing their family, struggling with coming to terms with things they'd done wrong in their life. And I kind of continue that. I got reclassed and moved to a minimum yard for my last 4 years, where I was also able to start a comprehensive music education program that not only taught music, but it taught, effective communication and responsible behavior and personal accountability, and it just kind of helped folks heal through music. And I think I taught somewhere in the neighborhood of 550 guys how to play some type of instrument in my 5 years of incarceration. The music program is still going strong to this day. I was actually groomed guys that I was teaching to take over the class that had some more time than I did when I left, and I'm still in contact with those guys. And so the program that I started there is still going on to this day, and I still try to donate equipment whenever they need it. And that's kind of how my prison that's how prison worked for me, right? It was initially violent the first year, and then the last 4 years, I was on a minimum work camp where my focus was teaching music and helping people heal through music, and also coming to terms with all the things that I had done in my life and kind of making peace with that through the lens of faith and sobriety.
That is a beautiful thing. I feel like a lot of people go into prison and they're probably a little more afraid and depressed and maybe not able to try to give back at that opportunity. But you wound up doing a pretty cool thing.
I thought it was cool. I mean, I tell people all the time. I tell this story at all my shows, and I tell people that prison was the best thing that ever happened to me. And I was a music teacher in prison for 45 cents an hour. And it was the most rewarding thing that I've ever done in my life. Because for once in my life, I wasn't living life through a selfish lens. I was trying to make up for all the wrong that I had done, and learn new ways to navigate the world through the lens of sobriety, and also help people heal through my experience of healing. And everybody heals a little bit differently, but I think music can help people heal, and it was just the most powerful thing that I've ever seen, is watching these guys that have been in for 15 or 20 years say, oh, I can learn how to play an instrument at 50 or 55 years old. I can spend my time productively in prison, not watching TV, but like learning an instrument, learning how to express myself through music. And that was kind of summation of what I saw music do for these broken individuals, including myself in prison, is it just helped them heal in a completely different format than maybe they had considered. Because I think folks are just trying to express themselves. Every human's trying to express themselves. We're going to find a way to express ourselves. The difference is some people choose different mediums to express themselves. And in prison, you have gambling, and there's a lot of drugs in prison. You got prison politics. There's a lot of ways to express yourselves or feel like you're fitting in or accepted. And it was cool to see the guys that were into all that stuff finally start playing music and leave that old life in prison behind, and kind of focus on playing music and expressing themselves through music, and knowing that if they got in trouble in there, they weren't going to be part of the program, because there were rules for this program. One of them was you couldn't get in trouble, or you couldn't be in it. There was a time I had over a year waiting list.
So when I called you to ask for this interview, you said you always have your phone on and you're ready to pick it up because you're part of a recovery community. Tell me about that and sort of how you've kept on track with the sobriety.
Well, first off, my sobriety came through my faith in Jesus. Nothing else in this world gave me sobriety. So my recovery program is faith based. I have an accountability group of folks that I talk to at least bi-weekly, to kind of just check the temperature of everyone. And as far as like leaving my phone on, like it shows, I always put it out there that, if there's anybody struggling, or anybody ever needs a ride, or just wants to talk or whatever, and I put my phone number is out there on the internet. And so I never know who's going to call. So if my phone is, if there's, unless I'm just doing something in the studio or playing a show or something, I will answer my phone no matter what the number says on it, because it may be a guy that I met 2 months ago that let some of the things I was saying to him sink in, and he may be struggling. Maybe he's got a couple weeks of sobriety and he's thinking about picking up again. I want to be there as much as I physically can for anybody, even a stranger that may need to call and speak to me.
What I guess it's a beautiful thing, but why are you putting so much back right now? Why are you
What
putting
do you
so
mean?
much back into the world, trying to help strangers, trying to save people in prison? It's an amazing thing. What's the motivation?
Well, the motivation is my faith. I mean, the motivation is this is what God has always wanted me to do. But I was a drug addict for so many years that I was not equipped to do it. So through my journey to help people in their sobriety, I also I talk to them about my faith, faith in my Savior, and tell them what God's done for me, and that if they're struggling with disbelief or unbelief and they're having a hard time with the world, well, maybe that's maybe they gain some faith in something other than their addiction or anything. I don't try to push my views off on anybody, but I believe in Jesus, and I believe that everybody needs to believe in something. And I don't it doesn't bother me when somebody doesn't believe what I believe in, because my faith and my relationship with God is between me and God, and everybody else's relationship between with God or whatever they believe in, that's between them and God. It's not for me to like judge somebody and say, oh, well, you have to believe this or you're wrong for believing this, because in my opinion, that's not the way it works. Yeah, I think you have to accept everybody, even when people, even folks engaged in things that we don't believe in. The God I believe in tells me to love everybody, and for many years I did not. And so it's cool to have that perspective when I wake up every day, the judgment-free perspective, and my motive is to help people heal. Uh, so that's kind of the condensed answer as to why I do what I do. I just want to give back as much as I can. I've taken so much in my life that I don't know that I can ever balance the scales of what I've taken by giving. And my motive is not to balance those scales. My motive is just to kind of selflessly give as much as I can where I can.
It's a beautiful thing. We're gonna move on to probably my favorite song on the album, which is a letter your conscience wrote to you.
Yeah. Well, it's cool. I was going to ask you. I ask in every interview what the guy that's interviewing me his favorite song is, and it's cool because it's different and on almost every time that I speak to someone. So I love the music that I write, like, hits different people in different ways.
Yeah, I mean, how do you have that conversation with yourself? Is that something that you were doing often, having that conversation with yourself in your head before you wrote that song?
This song actually came fairly easy because it's just the truth. And as far as conversations with myself, I mean, I'm constantly checking my temperature. I'm constantly like evaluating uh, my next move, and I'm also evaluating the choices that I make in real time. My sobriety and my clean living, it's not something that I just think about a couple times a day, right? I hold myself personally accountable for every choice and decision I make in every moment, right? And so, looking when I wrote a letter from my conscience, it was just like, all right, so I kind of looked back at my life and all the opportunities that I had to make a change, and the different entities that were speaking to me, i.e. your conscience, the things in my conscience tried to tell me not to do, that I wouldn't listen. And I kind of just had that story go through my head. I mean, everything in that song is a true story, and that's just the perspective of a guy that screwed up most of his life. And looking back, he had every opportunity to make those changes, and for some reason it took the long road to make those changes. People ask me what my rock bottom was, and I says, well, it was a little bit different for me because I kind of lived on the bottom. It wasn't until I bounced. There's a lyric in a song I have from my former band, Sour Diesel Trainwreck. It's a song called "Up Against," and it says, "I bounced off the bottom and I touched the other side." So I kind of lived on the bottom. So like hitting the bottom, I was comfortable with being at the bottom. But it wasn't until I kind of bounced off of the other side of it and touched the other side that I was like, okay, I guess now it's time to make a change. And I mean, living the life that I lived, and I took another man's life, as a result of driving impaired, and that's something I live with every day. And I can't let an action like that go like unnoticed in my own mind or compartmentalized. So that's all also some of the motive for what I do. I've taken so much, including a human life, that I owe it to the entire universe to be a different person as a result of the struggles that I've been through.
Well, let's hear Letter from My Conscience, and we'll be right back.